I grew up very religious. My entire family was incredibly invested in the church, and my parents made sure that I grew up the same way. So I guess it's no surprise that I became a nun as soon as I had the chance. Well, I was still pretty young, so it was more like an apprentice, but I was practicing to become a nun. I really looked up to an older nun and priest in the church. They were basically my teachers. They mentored me and showed me how I was supposed to behave. Of course, it wasn't all great. The nun that I looked up to was very mean and had a bit of a temper. She usually ended up taking it out on me, since I was the youngest around. She treated me like a slave and made me do everything around the convent. I had to cook, clean, do laundry, basically everything that the other nuns hated to do. I worked all day and pretty much all night too, like it was a double shift. Most of the time, I felt more like a janitor than a nun. I never practiced any praying or other studies with the rest of them. I was left to do the chores. It got very bad. The older nun would yell at me all the time, even if I did everything right. She would always find something to complain about. Either I hadn't scrubbed the floors enough or the bed sheets were too wrinkled. It was pretty ridiculous. I kinda just sucked it up and did what I was told. I didn't have much of a choice. Every night, when I was finally allowed to stop working, I would cry myself to sleep. I regretted ever becoming a nun, but I felt trapped. I couldn't just leave the convent. My family would never believe the reasons I gave them. I didn't know what to do. It went on like that every day for a while. I knew I was being treated unfairly, so one day I decided to address the matter with the priest, privately. But when I told him what was going on, he just ignored me and told me to do as I was told. He even yelled at me and told me I was defying God. I went into a depression after that. I didn't see how things would get better. I just cleaned and did my chores like I was told, barely functioning. I continued to cry every night. Then one day, after being yelled at by the nun again, I heard her talking about it with the priest in another room. But what was the most disturbing part was that I heard them laughing about it. They sounded like psychos. It was as if they'd been using me and laughing about it behind my back the whole time. I was so upset. I decided to confront them about it. I barged into the room and found them standing there, talking normally. I stood there and looked at them awkwardly, and they stared back at me.
Sorry, I thought I heard laughing in here.
Then, suddenly the nun charged at me and started yelling like crazy.
Get out of here! You have no right to be here! Get back to work, scum!
She tried to grab me, but I screamed and broke free. It was terrifying. I had no idea what she was going to do to me. I ran out there as fast as I could and got back to cleaning. Everything went on just the same as always for the next few days. But one night, as I was mopping the floor, I heard noises in the convent. It was scary as hell. The place was usually dead silent at this time. I noticed that the noises were coming from the same room that the priest and nun had been in before. I was scared out of my mind, but for some reason I had to know what was going on. I slowly approached the door, trying to make as little noise as possible. It was still hard to hear what was going on, so I put my ear to the door. What I heard freaked me out. It sounded like they were getting intimate or something on the other side. I was possessed by this urge to see what was going on, so I opened the door and slowly peeked in. The priest and nun were kissing. I screamed out of shock. It was illegal and unrighteous for them to be doing what they were doing. They were a nun and a priest. I couldn't believe my eyes. The pair of them charged at me, looking insane. I screamed and tried to get away, but they were too quick. They grabbed me and pinned me down. I couldn't break free. I kept screaming, hoping that someone would come.
Help! Someone help me!
Then, the priest pulled out a roll of duct tape and taped my mouth shut. I couldn't make a sound. Next, they tied my arms and legs together so that I was completely helpless. I had never been more terrified. They picked me up and carried me between them. They took me outside and began to walk towards the water well. I was sobbing and struggling to talk through the tape. I begged them to let me go, but they wouldn't listen. When we got to the well, they lifted me up and threw me inside. I lay there at the bottom of the well, bruised and trapped, my hands and legs tied and my mouth shut. I was stuck in the darkness with nothing but water and rats all around me. I screamed again as I looked up and saw the nun and the priest staring down at me. They were laughing with demonic faces and taunting me from above. I had no idea how I ever looked up to them. I knew this was the end. No one would ever find me down here. I cried softly to myself in total defeat.
Nine! 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 Nine!